For more on Wall Street malfeasance and the latest crackdowns, we are joined by Rebecca Legrand in Washington, D.C. She's a partner at the Kaiser law firm that represents individuals and corporations in white-collar crime cases. Thank you, Rebecca, for joining us. Now, the SEC had a long-standing policy of allowing defendants to avoid admitting wrongdoing. But with Mary Jo White at the helm, it seems a new precedent has been set. How significant is this, and what are the repercussions for the defendants? Rebecca?
Indeed, this is a significant shift by the SEC. Traditionally, they did not require any admission of wrongdoing when corporations or other individuals settled a case with them. Going forward, Mary Jo White has said that that will not be the case in the most serious cases, at least, where the wrongdoing is particularly egregious. That if a party wants to settle with the SEC, they will have to admit and take responsibility for their wrongdoing. And that has real consequences for defendants, particularly corporate defendants. It's a bitter pill for a corporation to swallow, and it can have wide-reaching consequences. These companies are often also involved in civil litigation brought by private plaintiffs, by disgruntled investors in class action suits or derivative cases. And in those cases, it's going to be much easier for private plaintiffs to prove their case if they can point to an admission of liability in a settlement with the SEC. So it's a bitter pill for a corporate defendant to swallow, to accept that kind of responsibility.
Right, Rebecca. Well, at the same time, critics say that this new policy will prompt defendants to go to trial instead of settling, which could potentially bog down the SEC. Do you think there's any truth to this, or are they just using this as an excuse?
I think you may see some additional trials. There are going to be some defendants who are not willing to settle and will insist on a trial if the settlement can only come with an admission of wrongdoing. But the fact of the matter is the SEC and the government as a whole still has a lot of pressure to exert on corporations to reach settlements. And I think you'll see that many major corporations are willing to accept settlements, as Mr. Falcone was today, that involve an admission of wrongdoing. So you may see some additional trials, which I, as a trial lawyer, don't think is necessarily a bad thing. But I don't think you're going to see our courts flooded with this work. A lot of cases will still settle. It's really up to each individual defendant to weigh the costs and benefits of settlement versus fighting in that situation.
Okay, and I want to talk a little bit about the fact that Obama appointed Mary Jo White to head the SEC. Another Obama appointee is Preet Bharara, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. He's also cracking down very hard on Wall Street malfeasance. He's been on the cover of Time magazine. He's been called the Sheriff of Wall Street. Now, is this the case of a few individuals making a big difference in how things are going to be run, or should we look at this as more of a concerted effort from the Obama administration in general?
Well, Preet Bharara, as the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, has quite a bit of independence. Each U.S. Attorney has a fair bit of control in deciding what their office is going to focus on, what kinds of cases they'll go after. So he does have a good deal of autonomy in deciding what he thinks his office mission should be, what he wants his legacy to be. But there is a synergy there. The way the U.S. Attorney's Office learns about cases in the financial industry is usually from the SEC or other regulators. So when you have an aggressive SEC, when you have other regulators taking an aggressive stance, that feeds into what the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York is doing. And they work together to mean that companies have a lot to worry about right now. There are a lot of different ways that the government is cracking down on malfeasance in the financial industry.
Okay, so you said that they have a fair amount of independence. So not safe to say or accurate to say that the Obama administration has declared war on Wall Street. What do you think?
I think war is pretty strong. I think that what they're responding to in all likelihood is criticisms from the other perspective, that the administration has gone too easy on the biggest banks, on the biggest players behind what caused the financial crisis. There's been a lot of criticism that the biggest fish have been able to walk away from all this. So I do think people throughout the administration, U.S. Attorney's offices independently, want to push back on that, want to show that, in fact, the laws do have teeth, even if you are a very large bank or a very large hedge fund. So I think there is pressure in the media, in the society, to take action here, and that everybody is feeling that.
Now, Rebecca, really quickly, we've got only about 15 seconds here. Do you think that we're going to see any change on Wall Street with these crackdowns, or will it go back to business as usual once we see a couple of people behind bars?
I think it's a little bit like whack-a-mole, right? There's always these cycles of a financial crisis or a huge scandal followed by increased enforcement, and there's always then pushback from industry where they find new ways to come up to the edge of the law and then eventually cross it. So I don't think you'll ever see financial wrongdoing go away. you may see a cycle of increased enforcement and then sort of a slide back towards increased wrongdoing. We've seen that cycle before, certainly post-Enron.
All right, well, it remains to be seen. Rebecca Legrand, thank you so much for joining us. That was Rebecca Legrand from the Kaiser Law Firm.